that I've got to do on the Mini is fixing the clutch. There's a problem with the hydraulics, and so from reading up online, I think the most likely thing is the clutch slave cylinder. There's a bit of corrosion around the hose that goes into the cylinder as well, so it's possible it might be that. There's no fluid in the system at the minute at all, so what I had aimed to do was fill the system, bleed it, which again I've looked up online and in the manual how to do. But again, I sort of got stuck because I didn't have the right spanner to open the bleed screw. Can't even pronounce it. Never mind, work on it. So I went off and did some research, try to find out what size of spanner I needed, and I found online that there was like a special tool for brakes and presumably the clutch bleed screws. And I'll just show you what it is, that I got. So here it is. It apparently has a quarter AF hex type thing on one end, and then the other end is, what size is that? 5/16. But unfortunately, and then I also bought a new 7mm just in case, because I read on the forums that sometimes once there's a bit of rust builds up, that that they may not necessarily work with the imperial ones, but that just by going to the next size up in the metric that you might get pulled out of a hole. But unfortunately this just seems too small for the bleed screw on the clutch. You can't use this end because it needs to be the open end for this, but yeah, I think it must be, somewhere between. I tried. This is a 5/16, and we had a 7/16, which I tried, but that's just definitely too big. It's just moving around on the nut, so it's somewhere in between, which is 3/8. But apparently, I've only unfortunately got the closed ring one. So again, for the sake of a spanner, I can't even test this. It's all quite frustrating, isn't it, whenever you don't know anything. Things take forever because you make simple mistakes, and what I really could do with is a set of spanners. But anyway. Okay, so my first job was to replace the clutch slave cylinder, and I have fallen down at the first hurdle. The one that I've got is different to the one that's in the car. I had read about the difference between Verdo and pre-Verdo clutch slave cylinders, and obviously this is the wrong type. So I'll have to take this back to the car spares place locally where I bought it, and they'll order me the right one. But that's a pity bit about this, because I probably could have had a good go at that today. But there you are, it's just one of those things. I can ring them up and they can probably order me the right one, and I'll get it next week. It's just one of those things, isn't it? You just have a lot to learn. So there we are, there's the clutch slave cylinder there. It's the thing with the spring above it. So what it describes on the internet is that the pre-Verdo clutch, the cylinder sits attached to the actual flywheel housing, and it's horizontal, and it comes up level with the clutch arm, and you can see that that's definitely meeting all those criteria there. It is horizontal, it is coming across and meeting the top of the clutch arm, and there's the arm. It also describes that the arm on a Verdo clutch is very short, so you can see there that's obviously quite a long arm. So I think there's no doubt it's definitely a pre-Verdo clutch. And it's a bit confusing because I thought that with my car being 1988 that it would therefore have a Verdo clutch. I think all I can do is accept that it is a pre-Verdo clutch and go and get the right bits for it. I've now got the new slave cylinder, so it definitely looks a lot more like what's on the car. This should work, so I'm going to try today and put it on. Before I do anything with it, I've double checked what size of spanner I need for that bleed screw there, and it turns out to be a 7/16. So that's useful to know before I put it on the car and then start to try to work it out. So we'll give it a try. Okay, so I got this far, got the cylinder off, and the only thing I couldn't do was loosen the bolt to the hose because it just had seized up a bit and I hadn't the force. So I had to get a bit of help, and someone's helping me here now, as you can probably see. Another rookie mistake I made last time when I was trying to work on this clutch slave cylinder was that got some marks on the wing of the car. So I've now put a piece of cloth there to stop that happening again. Just a little thing, but anyway, another lesson learnt. So happily the story about the clutch hydraulics ended in success yesterday. Just watched some more videos and chatted to my neighbour about how to bleed the slave cylinder, or bleed the system properly, and happily it worked. So I hadn't really understood what the purpose of putting one end of the tube that you're using to bleed the system, I hadn't really understood what the purpose of putting one end of it in fluid was in your jar, and of course the reason is that it stops air being drawn back in. So if you have the bleed screw open and you don't have the tube on, then when someone's pumping the clutch, it's just drawing more air in. So I hadn't really understood what the purpose of that was. But as soon as I did that and got someone to pump the clutch, hey presto, it worked. So happily the master cylinder didn't need to be replaced, because judging by some videos, that looks quite tricky to get the pins out to hold the rod from the master cylinder to the clutch pedal. So I'm really glad I didn't have to tackle that. So all's well that ends well. I went out for a wee drive yesterday in the Mini, and the clutch is working really well. So I feel pretty good that I've managed to do something successfully. It's a good start. A giant leap for Jackie Kine, let's say. So now on to the next test.